Football is awesome. Good morning, good evening, good afternoon, everybody. I'm your host of Friday Night Roots, Justin Thomas. Welcome back to the channel. I know this is only really my first episode when it comes to football, but hit that like button, hit that share button, hit that subscribe button. Anything helps. I'm like I said, I'm new at this, willing to kind of take what I can get at this point. So help me out if you can. If so, I would greatly appreciate it. And let's talk some football. So to kind of start today, I was kind of trying to think of things I should talk about, and I was looking at the media, and there's so much right now in the media surrounding the Raiders. So obviously this is kind of old news, but Tuesday they fired Antonio Pierce after a 4-13 season. I'm going to kind of cover that. I'm going to cover everything from that to Tom Telesco getting let go today, and then just kind of Brady and what he brings to the side of that side of the team, and then maybe just finish out with a couple of little things in terms of the head coaching vacancies and stuff like that. So follow along with me and stick with me if you can, and let's do it. So it's most people already know AP got fired on Tuesday after a 4-13 season. It was we all kind of saw it coming. Not that I think Raiders fans, I have a roommate who is a Raiders fan. Not that we all wanted to see it coming, but, we did. Ultimately 4-13 is just not going to cut it. And, I thought for a shot, there was a shot that Mark Davis might be close with AP and that relationship could foster into him getting another shot. And then ultimately, news to us as we found out today, Tom Telesco gets let go, but originally it didn't seem like that was going to happen. So that's exciting news. My opinion on Antonio Pierce, because my mom was a Raiders fan and I've been kind of passively following the Raiders because of that, even though I'm a Niners fan, listen, the Raiders have been in a complete and absolute joke since the early 2000s. I mean, 2003, I think, or just a joke. 2003 is the last time they went to a Super Bowl. I believe it was Super Bowl 37. They've just been pitiful. And I don't want to necessarily go into the owner-hating mode of it's all Mark Davis, but it clearly has something to do with it. Owners definitely have impact in this league, and more than people probably realize. And then, of course, following that, I think firing AP was the right move. I think the Raiders are really, really looking for a long-term coach, as silly as that sounds. I know they're paying 4 other coaches right now, so they're probably tired of it, and I'm sure Mark Davis is tired of it. I'm sure the Raiders are just, for such an iconic franchise, they're probably just trying to get back to their roots, right? So I'm sure that, hopefully, that happens, right? And then another little surprise today with Tom Telesco being fired. He's only been there a year, so a little shocking to see that coming, but, after last year and seeing the Tom Telesco with the Chargers and that, gosh, ironically enough, that 63-21 loss to the Chargers to the Raiders, when he was the GM of the Chargers is just, I don't know. I didn't love the hire, especially when AP hired the former Bears OC at the beginning of this year. I didn't love that hire. I didn't love the Tom Telesco hire. And listen, I'll admit, Tom Telesco is a very talented GM who's been around this league for a very long time. So I don't want to take anything away from him. And I don't think the Raiders was probably, the cream of the crop spot and he probably knew that taking that job. But still, being fired by the Chargers in 2023, after being there basically 11 years, which is pretty crazy. Now the Raiders embark on this crazy journey that no owner ever wants to go on, which is finding a new GM and coach. But I kind of don't hate the scenario for the Raiders simply because when you handcuff a GM and a coach, it usually is a smoother transition, right? Because when you already have a GM and you bring in a new coach, sometimes they may not be on the same wavelength. They may not agree on things. They may not have the same opinions on a lot of things. So for me, it's actually, I think it could be a benefit to the Raiders. And like I said, such an iconic franchise that just hasn't been able to get their feet underneath them and get going. So, hoping that helps them. I did see something interesting in the news also surrounding the Raiders today about Tom Brady. Obviously, we all kind of know Tom Brady's taken this small role. I don't know what exact percent he owns. I'll have to do some research and kind of figure that out. But Tom Brady, I did see that in a news article, Mark Davis did say that Tom Brady was going to have a substantial role in finding the next quarterback for the franchise. Throughout the media, though, I've been seeing so much information about how a lot of these people, a lot of the media members think, hey, maybe Tom could jump in and maybe have an assistant GM role or some sort of president of football operations role where he can really have his hand in the cookie jar when it comes to running or help run the Raiders franchise. And honestly, I think if I'm Mark Davis, I don't hate the idea. Obviously, Tom Brady's the GOAT. He's the legend. The publicity alone, is definitely going to help your team and your franchise. It's a matter of, does the future direction Tom Brady has in his mind, does that also align with Mark Davis? So that's kind of the weird question. But it did, in a report, Mark Davis did confirm that, post Super Bowl, Tom Brady is going to have his hand in the cookie jar when it comes to selecting their next coach. So exciting to see what that brings for the Raiders, and hopefully it does them well. I just think, like I said earlier, I just think the Raiders franchise has so much to give, yet, gosh, they've just sucked so bad, and I feel bad for Raiders fans. I'm not trying to rub it in as a Bay Area Niners fan. I passively support the Raiders. I love the Raiders. I think they have such a gritty history, and they're known as a tough as a smash mouth football team, and lately they just haven't been able to do it. So, I'm hoping that kind of helps, and that kind of feeds into the next part. Okay, well, what does the 2025 draft look like for the Las Vegas Raiders? Well, right now the Raiders currently hold the 6th overall pick in the 2025 draft. And not only that, they did trade Davante Adams earlier this year, so they're projected an additional 3rd-round pick from that trade. So, the Raiders got capital, on top of that 6th-round pick and that additional 3rd for the 2025 draft. They also are going to have over $100 million in salary cap space for free agency. So that's just going to balloon them in terms of spirits, and hopefully the new GM and coach use that as motivation to just kind of pound and build a football team. And that's ultimately, what I'm hoping for. I think the 6th-round pick is awesome. Listen, I know AP was at the end of the season was really fighting for his job, and in NFL it's an unspoken rule of pride and rule of play that you just don't tank games. But listen, if I'm AP and I don't know what the conversations were behind closed doors, but if I'm AP, you kind of hurt the team a little bit. I know it's a crazy opinion to have, but it kind of hurt the team a little bit just simply because that he won those last 2 games there at the end of the season. They were at one point number 2 but picked behind the Giants, and then the Giants, Drew Lock started rattling off games, and it was like, hold on. I get it though. When it comes to football, no team's ever just gonna fully just tank, or everyone in an organization is just going to tank. Maybe. When it comes to the Chiefs-Broncos situation, well, you could call it what you want, but that's what I call a tank. So, anyway, 6th-round overall pick in 2025. Really hopeful for them. It's not a heavy quarterback draft. It's a heavy running back draft. The real question surrounding the Raiders is what the hell they're going to do at quarterback. And that's going to be the hardest thing for them. And that's why I assume, Mark Davis has said, here, Tom, help us out. Give us a fucking shot. So I think that's what that does. And that additional 3rd-round pick, too, for Davante Adams, which, Davante Adams is such a touchy subject for me because I think him and Aaron Rodgers both had it really good in Green Bay, and so good that when things got a little sticky, they were like, screw this, I'm out. I'm going somewhere where the grass is greener. Well, the grass wasn't greener, and it wasn't softer either. So, I don't hate what Tom Telesco did when it came to trading Davante. Davante's getting up there, still an absolute baller. Don't get me wrong, but yeah, not surprised to see the Raiders move on from both of those. It's just, the Raiders have just such a crazy franchise history, such an iconic franchise, and honestly, moving to Vegas, although very controversial for a lot of Bay Area people, a lot of people in California. I live there, so I hear that stuff firsthand. It just sucks. It just sucks that all that happened, but it turned out to be a great financial decision for them moving, and all they got to do is just rattle off a couple wins, man. That's all I think they need to just spark the franchise a little bit, and I think people will be back in black and white jerseys ready to rock. Just lately, I mean, their franchise history is ridiculous. I mean, they've had 2 winning seasons since 2002. 2. And only those 2 winning seasons are their only 2 playoff appearances since 2002, which is just absurd. That's absurd. And since 2000, and then don't get me wrong, remember in 2003 or 2002, I think they went to Super Bowl 37 or whatever it was. Since 2000, they've had 14 head coaches. 14. Let that settle. 14 head coaches. Since 2012, they've had 7 head coaches, including interim positions, to be clear, and 3 general managers since 2012. That is absurd. That is so many. It is so hard to build a dynamic franchise. Now, I'm not saying they should go full Pittsburgh Steelers and have 3 coaches for 150 years. No, that's not what I'm saying. But what I am saying is I think sometimes a coach needs time to settle in. You know, you want to get spicy, we could talk about Gruden and how he was let go and his deal with the NFL. But, you know, I hear some teams are interviewing Gruden, but I just can't imagine, you know, the PR media nightmare that they would have to deal with. But Gruden's a great coach. You know, you hear him talk about ball. He's just one of those guys who loves ball, and you got to respect that, right? And from an owner's perspective, if I'm Mark Davis, I'm looking at this situation going, here, take it out of my hands. I don't want to be the guy in charge of this anymore. You know, and Mark Davis has kind of admitted he's not as big of a football guy as his dad was. His dad was a legend, and I'm not saying, you know, Mark Davis is not a legend. I just think, you know, in terms of performance, he's a bad owner. I'm not saying he's a bad owner as a person. I'm not saying he's a bad owner as a guy. I'm sure he's a great guy. I don't know. But all I'm saying is that this franchise needs help. You know, it just remains under pressure to rebuild after years of inconsistency, and that's got to suck. That's really got to suck. And, you know, having what, you know, kind of what brought the surprise from me when it came to the firing of Tom Telesco is, you know, they still do have $100 million in cap space for free agency in 2025, which is a crazy amount. Now, I'm not saying everything else prior doesn't tie back to Tom Telesco, maybe some mistakes he made. Once again, I'm not inside the building. I don't know. But wow, I mean, $100 million for free agency is a good amount, and I'm hoping they make some. You know, the Raiders need a big move, and especially in the draft, if they really don't get a quarterback this draft. I mean, let's talk about some free agents. Sam Darnold, come on. Sam's not going to be a free agent. We all know it. You know it. There's no way the Vikings are just going to let him walk out the building. They're not going to trade J.J. McCarthy, you know, I can't imagine them trading J.J. McCarthy when he's on a rookie deal. He's free. He's cheap. And what if Sam sucks eventually? Well, guess what? They're going to throw that rookie right in there. And to kind of, you know, tie that back to the Raiders, you know, picking a quarterback in the draft, I don't see them trading up, but they do have a lot of draft capital this year. Maybe they do trade up and make a Cam Ward or a Shador run, but I just can't see it. So, you know, hopefully Brady and the free agency really can lock down at least a quarterback that gets them back in relevancy, and I think that's all the Raiders really are hoping for next year is just to be relevant, be in the mix. And even last year they kind of were relevant. They finished, I think, 8-9 or 9-8, one or the other. You know, don't get mad at me if I'm wrong. It's one or the other. I don't know which one, but they were still there. They were still there, right? And when you're in a division with the Chiefs, the Chargers, and the Broncos, who all 3 have probably Hall of Fame coaches, Sean Payton, Andy Reid, and Harbaugh, and then you've got 3 rock stars at quarterback, Patrick Mahomes, Justin Herbert, and I get Bo Nix as a rookie, but man, is he shining bright. Sean Payton has nothing but great things to say about him, and we know Sean Payton knows how to win. So it's just one of those weird situations that, you know, hopefully works itself out. The thing that kind of catches me up in all this, all the politics and all the things I've been reading in the media about Tom Brady helping the Raiders is Tom Brady's making like $37.5 million a year. I just, you know, working in the media, I just don't know. I just don't know if that's enough to just walk away. Who knows? Maybe he wants to broadcast a few years. I know he has a long-term broadcasting deal. Maybe he wants to broadcast a few years and then, you know, jump into helping the Raiders, or I don't know what he's waiting for, but, you know, Fox doesn't seem to have a problem with him doing both. So it'll be interesting to see how Tom Brady connects back to the Raiders. And, listen, I just hope the Raiders get back on track. I'll give them this. The AFC West with those teams is brutal. It's a tough division. It's a dogfighting division. And let's not forget the Raiders did beat the Chiefs last year on Christmas. And they brought it to them. They almost beat them once this year too. So, the Raiders have what it takes and they have the makeup to be a good team. I just think they need a quarterback, someone, they just need a quarterback, someone who's got a howitzer, who can sling that damn thing, and then just ultimately kind of get them back on track. I don't think even if they didn't have someone with a big arm, they just had a shorter, throw distance, but some guy who can just throw darts, throw laser beams. I think even then they would have a little bit better chance, because then you can kind of, if they have a good enough coach, you can kind of scheme around that, right? You can make stuff happen. And ultimately, I do really hope that for the Raiders. So when it comes to all the openings in the NFL, that kind of leads into the next topic of Raiders. Raiders have a GM opening, the Jets and the Titans. All three have a GM opening. Jets, listen, talk about a bullshit franchise. I know I give the Raiders shit, but man, the Jets are a bullshit franchise, and their owner, gosh, I don't know anybody who would want to walk into New York and be a GM or a coach, frankly. I mean, the coach I could see a little bit more. They do have some good weapons. They got Garrett Wilson. They got Sauce Gardner. They have a great D-line and Keon Williams. They've got all that stuff. It's just a matter of can they put it together? And firing Robert Saleh was the Jets' ultimate mistake, so that was stupid. And then you go, so Raiders, Jets, Titans. Titans, I don't know much about the Titans. I don't know about their owner. I'll do a little more research on it. But, yeah, Titans, I wouldn't hate the Titans' job. I know the Titans are one of those franchises who are kind of on the back end, who are just looking to kind of break through and get their shine, and they will. I really think the Titans have the makeup to do it. I just think they need the right guy. The Titans made a huge mistake firing Vrabel years ago. I know they have a coach now, but they're looking for a GM, so it'll be interesting to see how that works itself out. And then head coaching jobs right now, currently, as of today, it's still Raiders, Jets, Jags, Bears, Saints, and Patriots. Raiders, we kind of already talked about. I just can't imagine the Raiders bringing in go back to what we talked about today with the Raiders. I just can't imagine the Raiders bringing in a top talent at coach just because they don't have a quarterback. And a new coach's best friend is a quarterback. You have a quarterback, you might have a shot to even be relevant. So that Jets, same thing. Jets have some weapons. Aaron Rodgers, question mark, but once again, he's still four-time four-time MVP winner. So not a bad job. Jaguars, same thing. At least Jaguars have a quarterback in Trevor Lawrence. I know that's a hot take depending on who you ask, right? Is Trevor really that good? I don't know, but they did just pay him a lot of money. So we'll see where that goes, right? Bears got a quarterback. I think the Bears have a great foundation. Big landing spot for Vrabel or Ben Johnson. It's seeming like also the Lions defensive coordinator Aaron Glenn. He'll be in these teams will fill up with those names for sure. It's just a matter of who ends up going where. I know Vrabel talked about, I know the Patriots have an opening after Gerard Mayo got let go. I know Vrabel, his connections with the Patriots, could see him ending up taking a Patriots job. It seems like they found a quarterback in Drake May, but once again, up for debate. And then Saints. Saints, another one of those jobs I just don't think anyone's going to be super stoked to take. Kind of not an irrelevant franchise by any means, but lately kind of a more irrelevant out of the news franchise. You don't hear much about them. You don't hear anything about them winning lately. So kind of we'll see. That kind of covers all the coaching and GM openings right now. Other exciting news, well, I guess this isn't exciting, but due to the fires in L.A., thoughts and prayers out to everyone in L.A. I'm in Sacramento, California, so not far. I'm just being in Northern California. I'm used to wildfires. We get them all the damn time. When I was going to Sac State, they shut down school for 3 weeks. Just the air quality was so bad you couldn't even walk outside, and they were recommending wearing a mask walking outside pre-COVID. So, yeah, crazy stuff there. But, yeah, so the NFL it's looking like they're good. They could move the Rams and Vikings game to Phoenix, but that's not an easy thing to do, right? That's a big venture because you got to put a team on a plane. You got to figure out your hotel. You got to figure out all that information. But right now it's set to stay in L.A. for Monday the 13th at 5, so I guess we'll see where that goes. And then to kind of close everything out, we'll talk on the Niners. I saw that the Niners today interviewed Robert Saleh for their open DC position. So as a Niners fan, I don't know totally how I feel about it. Still exciting to hear about. They did their end of the year press conference, and it's interesting to see because it's hard to tell if I'm happy or excited about it. Kyle Shanahan did say he does love his defensive scheme, and he's a big fan of his defensive scheme. At what point do you change it? Ever since DeMeco Ryans left, the Niners defense has been shaky at best. So I'm not opposed to bringing back Robert Saleh, but we'll see if that actually has a positive impact if they do end up doing it, and if it's something that Robert Saleh even wants. I know the Jets still owe him money. Who knows? Maybe he'll take a year off and enjoy the money. But anyway, it'll be interesting to see. What comes of the next few days. It's a very volatile time in the NFL with teams ending their season and then postseason starting. So I'll be continuing to upload videos and give you news. And as always, let's talk some ball. Love ya.